What do you do when you've lost everything, and staying faithful has cost you even more? This is the story of a woman named Ruth. She was a foreigner, a widow, with no legal standing and no financial security. She had every reason to walk away. She chose to stay. The Book of Ruth is one of the most complete stories in all of Scripture. 4 chapters, a complete narrative arc, from loss to loyalty to redemption. But beneath the surface of this story is a structure that most people never see. A legal and theological structure called the goal, the Kinsman Redeemer. Understanding it will change how you read this story and how you understand what Jesus did for you. To understand Ruth, we need to start before Ruth. The story begins in the time of the Judges, a period of instability, moral drift, and survival in ancient Israel. A famine had come to Bethlehem. The land that was supposed to flow with milk and honey had gone dry. A man named Elimelech decided to take his family somewhere the food was, to Moab, across the Jordan. In Moab, the sons Mahlon and Chilion married Moabite women, one named Orpah, one named Ruth. Then Elimelech died, and then 10 years later, both sons died. Naomi was left alone, a widow in a foreign land, with no path forward. Then word reached her that the famine in Bethlehem was over. The Lord had provided food for his people. She decided to return to Bethlehem. She set out from Moab, and both daughters-in-law walked with her. But then, Naomi stopped. "Go back to your mother's homes," she said. "May the Lord show you kindness, as you have shown it to me." And they wept. "No, go back. I am too old. The Lord's hand has turned against me." Orpah kissed her mother-in-law and turned back toward Moab. But Ruth clung to her. Naomi said, "Look, your sister-in-law is going back. Go with her." And then Ruth spoke. She didn't ask. She didn't bargain. She didn't negotiate. She made a declaration. And this is where Ruth said something no one expected. "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me." She had chosen a God she barely knew, and a future she could not see. Naomi stopped urging her, and together they walked toward Bethlehem. 2 women, 1 road, no guarantees. They walked the road from Moab to Bethlehem, together. They arrived in Bethlehem, just as the barley harvest was beginning. The whole town was stirred because of them. The women said, "Can this be Naomi?" And Naomi said, "Don't call me Naomi, call me Mara. The Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty." Ruth heard every word Naomi said about God, and she stayed. They settled in Bethlehem, and Ruth began to think about what came next. And Ruth said to Naomi, "Let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone who will let me. Let's understand what gleaning was, because it matters." God's law commanded landowners to leave the edges of their fields unharvested and to leave fallen grain behind. This provision was for the poor, the foreigner, and the widow. Gleaning was the lowest status form of provision. It was hard, public labor, done on your knees, 1 stalk at a time. Ruth came to the fields early in the morning, basket in hand, and she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, a man of standing from the clan of Elimelech. She worked one stalk at a time, hour after hour. She barely stopped. The text tells us she rested only briefly in the shelter. Just then, Boaz arrived from Bethlehem. He greeted his workers. "The Lord be with you." And they answered him, "The Lord bless you." Boaz looked out over the field, and he noticed her. He asked his foreman, "Who is that young woman?" The foreman told him, "She is the Moabite who came back from Moab with the Naomi. She asked permission to glean, and she has worked steadily from morning till now." Boaz left his workers and walked toward her. He said to her, "Listen, my daughter, don't go to any other field. Stay here with my workers. Stay close to my workers. Watch which fields they harvest and follow them. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you. Whenever you are thirsty, go and drink from the water jars the men have filled." Ruth bowed to the ground. "Why have you noticed me?" she asked. "I am a foreigner." Boaz said, "I've been told everything you have done for your mother-in-law. How you left your father and mother and your homeland to come to a people you did not know." And then Boaz said something that named the God who had been present the whole time. "May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have taken refuge." At mealtime, Boaz invited Ruth to eat with his workers. He gave her roasted grain, more than she could eat. After she left, Boaz privately told his workers, "Let some stalks fall on purpose for her, and don't rebuke her." That evening, Ruth returned to Naomi, carrying about 22 pounds of barley, and she gave Naomi what was left from her meal. Naomi looked at the grain, and she had a question. Naomi asked, "Where did you glean today? Blessed be the man who took notice of you." And when Ruth said it was Boaz, Naomi's whole expression changed. "That man is our close relative," Naomi said. "He is one of our kinsman redeemers." Ruth stayed close to Boaz's workers through the barley harvest and the wheat harvest, months of faithful, ordinary work. Then Naomi said, "My daughter, I must find a home for you, a place of rest. Boaz will be at the threshing floor tonight. Wash and perfume yourself. Put on your best clothes. Go to the threshing floor. When Boaz lies down, uncover his feet and lie there. He will tell you what to do." Ruth said to her, "I will do whatever you say." The threshing floor, where grain was separated from chaff under the night sky, a practical place, and on this night, a sacred one. Boaz ate and drank, and his heart was merry. He went and lay down at the far end of the grain pile. The workers slept. The threshing floor was quiet under the stars. And Ruth came, quietly. She uncovered his feet and lay down. In the middle of the night, Boaz woke with a start. He turned, and there was a woman lying at his feet. He asked, "Who are you?" She answered, "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread the corner of your garment over me, for you are a kinsman redeemer." You heard Boaz say it in chapter 2, "Under whose wings you have taken refuge." Now Ruth is asking him to be those wings, the goal made human. Boaz said, "The Lord bless you, my daughter. This kindness is greater than what you showed before. You have not run after the younger men. Don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character. But then, there is a kinsman redeemer nearer than I. He has the first right. I must offer it to him first. But if he is not willing, as the Lord lives, I will do it." Ruth lay at his feet until dawn. He told her, "Don't let anyone know a woman came to the threshing floor." Before the light, she rose and left, before anyone could recognize her. Boaz said, "Bring your shawl." He poured 6 measures of barley into it and placed it on her. Ruth returned to Naomi, and Naomi said, "Wait, my daughter, find out what happens. The man will not rest until the matter is settled. Today, the city gate, the place of legal transactions, public witness, and civic authority in ancient Israel." Boaz went up to the town gate and sat down there. Just then, the Kinsman Redeemer Boaz had mentioned came along, and Boaz called to him, "Come over here, my friend. Sit down." Boaz took 10 of the elders of the city, and they sat down. The legal transaction was about to begin. Boaz presented the matter to the kinsman. "Naomi has a piece of land belonging to our relative Elimelech, and she is offering it. The right to buy it is yours first." The man said, "I will redeem it." Then Boaz said, "On the day you buy the land, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the widow of the dead, in order to maintain his name with his property." The man said, "I cannot redeem it, because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself. I cannot do it." Now in Israel, to confirm a legal transaction, a man removed his sandal and gave it to the other party. This was how transfers were legalized. Boaz took the sandal. Then Boaz declared to the elders and all the people, "Today you are witnesses. I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear." And all the people at the gate said, "We are witnesses." The elders blessed them. "May the Lord make this woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the family of Israel." Let's pause. What just happened was not a romantic gesture. It was a legal covenant act, irrevocable, public, witnessed, costly. Boaz had no legal obligation to redeem Ruth. He could have watched the nearer kinsman decline and moved on. He chose this. He acquired land that would not increase his wealth. He took a foreign widow with no social standing as his wife. He did this at real cost, freely, because he chose to. And all of this, every step of it, was pointing toward something far larger than one man and one woman in ancient Bethlehem. Now we need to talk about the goal system and why understanding it changes everything. In ancient Israel, the goal was a kinsman redeemer, a family member with both the right and the ability to step in and pay the price for someone in the family who could not pay for themselves. The goal could redeem land that had been sold. He could buy back a family member who had been enslaved. He could preserve the family name by marrying a widow. He paid the price others could not. There was no law requiring a goal to act. The law gave him the right. The choice was entirely his. What Boaz did for Ruth is a precise picture of what Jesus did for all of us. Not an approximate echo, a precise portrait. To be a goal, you had to be a family member. You had to be related to the person you were redeeming. Jesus became one of us, became flesh, specifically to qualify as our kinsman redeemer. Just as Boaz paid a price he didn't owe to redeem someone with no claim on him, Jesus paid the price of sin for people who had no right to be in God's family. Ruth was a Moabite, outside the covenant people of God, and yet she was redeemed and brought in. Paul wrote, "At one time you were excluded from citizenship in Israel, foreigners to the covenants of promise." That was all of us. Ruth the outsider was brought in, not despite being a foreigner, but as herself, her identity named and honored in the public declaration. Boaz took Ruth, and the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. They named him Obed. The women of Bethlehem gathered around Naomi, the same community that witnessed her bitterness on arrival. Praise be to the Lord, who has not left you without a kinsman redeemer. He will renew your life. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth. Naomi took the child and held him in her lap. And then the text records the genealogy. Obed, the father of Jesse, the father of David. Ruth the Moabite, who gleaned at the edges of a field to survive, is the great-grandmother of King David and an ancestor of Jesus Christ. God does not need extraordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. He uses ordinary faithfulness in ordinary places to accomplish things that echo for thousands of years. Which means that what God did in Bethlehem, He is still doing in ordinary places, through ordinary faithful people, right now. So what does this mean for you? Right now? You may be in the middle of a Ruth chapter 1 right now. Loss, displacement, nothing guaranteed. The famine hasn't broken. The road ahead is unclear. Ruth's story doesn't promise that if you stay faithful, everything will be restored by chapter 4. Some things are not restored in this life. That is true and real. What it does promise: the God who directed Ruth's steps to Boaz's field is the same God who sees your situation right now. He is not absent. He is not idle. And He is the goal who does not step back when the cost becomes clear. Jesus, unlike the nearer kinsman, does not say, "I cannot. It will endanger my estate." His garment has already been spread. His redemption has already been declared, publicly, irrevocably, at cost to Himself. The only question remaining is whether we will receive it. Ruth did not know she was in a story that would be told for thousands of years. She was just a foreign widow, gleaning at the edges of a field, trying to survive. But God was doing something she could not see, and her ordinary faithfulness was the instrument He chose to use. The God who directed Ruth's steps to Boaz's field, that God has not changed. He is the goal, the Redeemer, and whatever has been lost, He has not forgotten you. He saw Ruth when she was a gleaner at the margins. He sees you in whatever ordinary place you are standing in right now. You are not forgotten. Before you go, take a moment. Lord, help me see your hand in the ordinary places. Help me trust that faithfulness is never wasted. And help me remember that you are the Redeemer, not just of Ruth, but of me. If this helped you see Scripture more clearly, we'd love for you to subscribe to Logos Made Simple. Share this with someone who needs it today. There's more coming. We'll see you in the next story.